What's going on, folks? Ted from Immersion here, and I do want to apologize. I know you'll tell me, Ted, you don't need to apologize, blah, 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 but I wanted to do it anyway because of the lack of videos. So obviously some of you know where I was at Green Dragon Fest for a couple weeks ago, so that took up some of my time. And this past weekend, oh, God, weather was... It didn't look like it was going to be that bad, but basically, as some of you know, I work for an electrical utility, and we basically had like a mini tornado touchdown, and it devastated an area, and we basically had to rebuild the entire infrastructure in this area. I got like between like Friday and Sunday, I got like literally an hour, maybe an hour and a half worth of sleep, because every time we left a shift, we were pretty confident we weren't coming back, and then we ended up coming back. So I've been burnt out and things have been crazy, and then there was weather yesterday, so I didn't get any holiday weekend. For those of you here in America, it's Memorial Day weekend, so a lot of us celebrated that. I didn't get any holiday at all. I basically worked nonstop straight through, and I'm starting to return to a semblance of normalcy. So that being said, what a great time to do that, because we got the front cover of the non-collector's edition version of the Dungeon Master's Guide, and I'm shocked that Venger, of all people, the villain from the D&D animated cartoon, is one of the prime 3 characters on the front cover of this book. Now, we knew they were going to be giving us stats in the DMG for all of the D&D cartoon characters, magic items, Presto's magic hat, Hank's energy bow, Eric's shield, and so on. And that Venger would appear in some form in some of the books coming up, or possibly in his own campaign setting. But to have him front and center on the DMG is pretty wild. It's usually like a lich or some sort of big evil undead thing. Not that Venger isn't necessarily both of those, but I don't know. It's just a wild concept to me. So let's go ahead and take a look. By the way, if you like this kind of stuff, consider subscribing to the channel. Here it is. This was, I think, where it broke was on this mirror.co.uk. I'll be honest, I hate this website. It's just full of ads. It's horrible to look through. But long story short, we can just export out the image and take a look at it here. So you can see right on the front, we have Venger here, front and center at the top of some sort of cauldron or casket or on top of some dais. It is very clearly him with the wings, the one curved horn coming off the top. And then you can see 2 other prominent figures here. You've got Warduke up here in the front right here with the flaming sword, surrounded by what looks to be a horde of skeletons with these ice blue magic in their eyes. And then I believe the other character here, I think it's Skylla. It's Skylla. She's another one of those kind of iconic D&D characters in a similar concept as like Strongheart and Warduke. So, and then it looks like possibly a dragon. You see the big eyes in the background here. Perhaps this is a dragon. I'm not really sure. It is very large in size, so dragon is what comes to mind, but we can't really get too much of an image on what that is. And then here on the back cover, we have what looks like this is a mind flayer up here holding a brain in its hand. So we've got an illithid here. We've got some sort of large statues. We can see we're kind of probably in the Underdark, right? We see a lot of glowing mushrooms. We see a chest over here. There's a skeleton with some like arrows or something piercing through it. And there's our adventuring party kind of continuing down some staircase. This looks like possibly, again, another tentacle kind of thing. Maybe this is a big illithid temple. Weave fantastic adventures. The revised and expanded Dungeon Master's Guide provides all the inspiration and guidance you need to create and run a thrilling adventure for the 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons game. Inside, you'll find world-building advice, a pre-built yet customizable D&D world, tricks for creating memorable adventures, hundreds of magic items, rules for player-controlled strongholds, ready-to-use maps and handouts, tips for keeping players happy and on the edge of their seats, and other tools to help you be a great Dungeon Master. A companion to the 5th edition Player's Handbook 2024 and Monster Manual 2025. Now, on paper, this is really good. I like the red spine that we're seeing here as well. Kind of has the same kind of flair of the 5e books with a kind of whatever that kind of black like splotch is that's covering up the Dungeons and Dragons right here. This is kind of, it's usually a bright red. That's kind of like a thing that we've seen on a lot of 5th edition spines. But I kind of like that it's the 50th anniversary of the game and they're going for a solid red spine, kind of, I think, trying to evoke classic red box vibes from it. Also, we don't know what the collector's edition cover looks like. If history has dictated what happened with the PHB, then tomorrow some other company should get a exclusive preview of what the collector's edition cover looks like. Because again, for one of the first times in in Dungeons and Dragons history, we are launching out the gate with collector's edition versions of the core rulebooks. I saw somebody, I made a comment about that in the last one with the Player's Handbook. Several people said things along the lines of, well, we've had collector's editions in the past. And that's true, right? We've even had them in 5th edition with the core rules box sets where we had the Hydra 74 books, and we've had them for 3rd edition. They were like leather-bound tomes. We've done collector's edition covers for the core books in the past over various editions. However, we usually, and I could be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, please, but I don't believe we've ever launched an edition. This isn't obviously a new edition, but we could debate that for years. We're launching with collectors of covers out the start. It's usually something when they update the rules, compiling mass amounts of errata or some sort of box set. This now, from the start, like any other book we are, for 5th edition anyway, we're getting the base one, which you can see here with the kind of painterly style of this. And then we'll get probably another one similar to the other PHB version that we saw, which had, that looked to be the same style of artist, at least for the Player's Handbook, who did Tasha's Cauldron of Everything collector's edition cover. So I'm hoping we'll see something similar. Now, if we recall, the collector's edition version, or the base version, again, had this painterly style here, but had, again, a group of heroes with a gold dragon. And then here we have Venger, Skyla, Warduke, and something in the background here. So will the collector's edition cover have a different, more stylized version of them? That would be pretty cool. Also, I have to say, Venger has never looked more actually scary. He was kind of a goofball, but it was an 80s cartoon, and 80s cartoon villains are kind of goofballs. In the vein, I mean, like, he did do crazy things like throwing Tiamat at the party and stuff like that right out the gate, but he was still kind of goofy. This looks actually pretty scary, and if you didn't know the connection of that character to the cartoon, you'd be like, damn, that's a pretty cool looking character. I wonder what that guy is. What's his story? Again, for those of us who've been around and have seen that, you'll know. But you know what? Honestly, it evokes a very cool image regardless of your knowledge of the cartoon. So I'm pretty excited to see what the collector's edition cover looks like. Again, obviously, we'll be doing coverage of these going forward. And I guess this is as good a time as any to throw it out there. I might do it in a separate video. But hey, if you stuck around to the end, you get the little sneak preview. The folks over at Wizards of the Coast did reach out to me a couple weeks ago asking if I would like to get early access to, at this point, just the Player's Handbook. This is the one, the kind of print version that you've seen some people have kind of reviewed. And, you know, I will be able to have that, which I should have this week, I believe. And it's under NDA, so I can't talk about anything contained within the book. I can't showcase any art unless they tell me otherwise. So I am given access to that early, like I said, should be this week for a book that doesn't launch until sometime in like early access, I think is sometime in August, with the planned print release is, I believe, early September. And then basically, I'm just allowed to make content on that. I just can't release it until the embargo goes live, which I believe is as soon as early access becomes available on something like D&D Beyond. Now, I'm allowed to tell you that I signed that NDA. It'll be great to be able to make content well in advance so that content can just kind of roll out continually once the official early access in the embargo is up. So that's pretty cool to do so. The only thing I'll have to just also be honest about is I don't know what the embargo looks like. Right now, we're under the NDA that we can't talk about what anything's in it. Again, I still haven't seen anything yet. I've also asked for clarification from Wizards of the Coast, like, if someone says blah, 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 and I'm allowed to say something like I like it or I don't like it, is that too much? I don't know at this point. Still waiting to hear back. But I just wanted to give you a heads up that, yeah, I'll be covering the Player's Handbook, and you should have content as soon as early access goes live. I should have content dropping here on the channel that's already been made well in advance. Again, I'm not sure what they're going to allow me to show. I may not be able to show pictures or stat blocks or whatever it might be. The embargo comes at a later point once I actually see things. But pretty excited to be able to do this. This is actually a really cool thing that Wizards of the Coast is doing that they haven't really done for content creators before. It is completely voluntary. I thought the concept of being able to get ahead of the game and make content in advance so that I can release it, you know, throughout the day once early access goes live so that you guys can have it right away would be a cool idea. But again, I don't know what the embargo says. It might kind of handcuff me in some ways, and then that might be a conversation that we won't be doing this kind of thing in the future. But to WotC's credit, they're being very open and transparent about how, like, this is voluntary. You don't have to sign this. If you do this, it doesn't like limit you from getting other experiences or opportunities in the future. If you say no, that's fine. The only thing they actually said is you have to make one piece of content with it, which obviously I would. So there's that. But yeah, the only thing is, again, they might say you can't show off new art. Unless, like, they might give me an art pack and say, here's a bunch of images you can show. And then obviously anything outside of that I can't. So we'll see what this brings. But they're also very open and honest about the fact that I can say that I did sign that NDA and that is a thing that I'll be doing. They're trying to be very transparent with that. They don't want to have any kind of gray area in that aspect, at least from the initial setup of it, which again, I do think is a step in the right direction in this attempt to build trust since the OGL, which again, the fact that we're even having this conversation about this is kind of a step in the right direction, that you're realizing that, hey, folks like myself and other people out there who make content about your games, we're one of your best sources of marketing. It only makes sense for us to get early access to these things. What will truly convince me that we have moved to the concept that WotC understands that folks like myself and all the other content creators out there are their best source of marketing is when people like me or somebody else gets to unveil the exclusive art of something instead of like a company like mirror.co.uk or some other random like news outlet. Not to say that things like comicbook.com and IGN and those don't make sense, that's fine, but like it would be really cool for one of us to be the one who first drops that new piece of art or first drops that new whatever you want to show cover or release date or something like that. Give a content creator the exclusive bit. That would really, to me, that would really show that we're kind of turning that corner on like possibly, you know, traditional, and obviously digital isn't even technically traditional media, but like we're realizing that content creators and people absorb a lot of their content that way. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'd rather have a content creator tell me what's in a news article than me go and read it myself. Maybe that's just me. But yeah, like if one of my favorite games has an update or a patch notes, I'd rather have somebody read the patch notes to me than me just go read the patch notes myself. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. This is pretty exciting. I'm excited to see what comes from it, and I'll keep you posted with as much as I can as soon as I can. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.